place for conversations. SDAQ&A. You're safe to speak your truth. Common ground, shared beliefs with lots of room for disagreement. Tell us all what you believe and let us see if we can challenge you. From all paths coming here to share their stories. Some have left this global church, some remain and defend her. Where are you on the path? Does Ellen still appeal to you? SDAQ&A, you are welcome here. 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 Oh, SDAQ&A, you are welcome here. SDAQ&A, you we are finding you love me so much more than I could ever know. Your love is deeper than this world will ever show. And all of life's beauty shines around this moment now. The sky and the cliffs, they seem to change my life somehow. And I will never be the same, will never be the same. Whoa, I will never be the same, never be the same ever again. Well, here I am waiting, Lord, my life is just for you. Please unfold all the plans that you would have me do. And if all the world's just a breath and nothing's here to stay, then all of the love we feel will save us anyway. And I will never be the same, will never be the same. Whoa, I never be the same, will never be the same ever again.
And God's will is simple. The most wretched man in hell will not be Adolf Hitler. The most wretched man in hell, or woman, will not be one like Joe Stalin or some of these more modern devils. The most wretched person in hell will be a former Seventh-day Adventist.
Hello and welcome to another SDA Q&A. Happy New Year, everybody. And my very special guest for the first show of 2026 is Kristi Williams. And Kristi is a religious trauma coach, and she's watched the show occasionally. She is a former Seventh-day Adventist, and we're going to have a great conversation today, getting to know a little bit more about her and what she does and the Adventist connection and how it deals into trauma. And right off the bat, that little clip there that I found, I've forgotten the guy's name. He was a very, very famous Seventh-day Adventist preacher and evangelist. What did you think of those comments? That's the kind of thing that causes trauma, isn't it? Wouldn't you say, Kristi? And welcome, by the way.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you. I say this tongue in cheek, but the more I see of who's going to heaven and who's going to hell, sign me up for the hell package. I want to be with them.
Those people.
I hope I'm the worst one there.
I saw this fantastic postcard years ago of Elvis playing a harp, looking on a cloud in heaven, looking down, and the caption was something like, Elvis was wishing he was with all his friends down in hell.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a party.
Oh dear, what a interesting way to kick off the program.
Should we do like a real quick altar call? Like, I
Yeah.
would love for any of you who would like to come to hell with me to please come forward.
Well, I did take my youngest daughter, aged 11, to see AC/DC the other day, and anyone that knows their
Oh,
music, there were red horns everywhere, and Highway to Hell, and Hell's Bells. There, all the songs were being sung, and I did get a lot
that
of
sounds
flack
like I'm going to be seeing you there, Peter.
when I posted a couple of clips and pictures. I did get
Oh
some
yeah.
pushback
Oh
from
yeah.
people,
Yeah. Yeah.
whereas to me, it's
Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
tongue-in-cheek, fun band. Yeah.
Totally. Totally.
Hey, we've got a lot of people watching and some really great comments. A lot of people saying, welcome back. We've got Dexter. So welcome back, Peter. It's been a year since we heard from you. Andy McMahon, listening while working and driving after a good sit at their local coffee shop first day. I like that. That's good. Everyone's reaching out and saying hello to everybody else. Rochelle writes, wow, it's been a hot minute. New theme song. Well, now I'm going to be upfront. I have said this up front before. Of course, the second song, Never Be the Same, is me, all real instruments with my band. And we
How
recorded that.
cool.
We recorded that 20 years ago, that song, and it's from an album. Let me just quickly bring it onto the
I
screen.
wasn't even alive 20 years
No,
ago.
no, that's the thing, you know. You got to hang around with more of us old folk. But
No,
just
I
off to
was.
Oh, I was going to believe you because oh, wow, there we go.
I'm not quite that young.
That's the album, and it's available on Spotify.
Nice.
Go and listen to it for free. I think it's 21 years ago now. So that's that song. But as Rochelle just queried, I will be very truthful. The other song is a new song with my lyrics, but with all AI driven. And the reason I
Oh.
did that was because every time I use one of my songs or someone else's songs, you get a copyright hit and it mutes your channel. Some parts of the
Mm.
world you can't even listen to the show. And I thought, well, if I can create something that's
Mhm.
never been created, and
Mhm.
just use it for the show, fine for intro stuff. But it
Mhm.
sounds quite good.
Mhm.
And also Malcolm Clark says he's hoping to have a song ready for Friday every week, Thursday, 5:30 p.m. And here in Australia, lunchtime, we have Good News Fellowship, where a bunch of us get together and we have a guest presenter. And Malcolm plays some beautiful music for us for that as well.
Wow.
Rochelle noticed the flames. Ha ha, Pete. The flames were hilarious. Yeah, I'm going to get the timing a bit better next time. And she also adds, so excited for this show. It's going to be fascinating and informative. Now, Kristi, before we dive in and talk about the trauma side of it and what you do and the Seventh-day Adventist kind of connection, I just want you to know that a lot of the audience, there's a real wide catchment area, demographic, a wide spectrum of people watching. We've got conservative Adventists, leaders, scholars, academics, current lay Adventists. We've got former Adventists of every type, style, and variety, agnostics, atheists, believers, everyone think of watches this show. And I like that because the common ground,
Yeah.
we've got lots of things we gather together around the common ground. But
Yeah.
in that pool of people, I have noticed, and I've done some research, there is a high level of people who are connected to the Adventist Church or have been connected to the Adventist Church in any way. There's a high level of people reporting mental health problems, trauma issues, higher than some of the other denominations in the world. So just to
Oh.
get the ball rolling, have you found that in your study? Because you're a religious trauma coach, so you don't just deal with Adventists, but are you finding that Adventism, we're not talking about people, not attacking anybody, it's just a program to challenge our thoughts and ideas and to make things better for people. Are you noticing that Adventism has its own unique kind of trauma?
My own journey started in the psych ward. I don't know if I told you that.
No,
I
I
had
know nothing.
religious psychosis from the investigative judgment.
Say that again. I missed that.
I had religious psychosis from the investigative judgment.
You did personally.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
how this all started.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
what took me out because I was in so deep. I lost my mind trying to make sense of nonsense.
yeah, far out.
So in my work as a coach, I think because my background is I have a master's degree in nursing that's like research based. So when you ask me about data, I'm like, I haven't conducted any research.
In that
But
area. Yeah.
what I have observed is across the board, fundamentalism wreaks insane havoc on our mental health and our emotional well-being. It is not limited to Adventism, but it's like a
Right.
spectrum that it's just a spectrum of high control. The more
Hmm.
controlling the group, the worse the mental health.
Yes. Okay. Great. Great. Um, Yeah, that is fascinating, and I'll talk to people that say, "Oh, I didn't have those kind of traumas about the last days and the time of trouble and the
Hmm.
investigative judgment." But really, when you dig in and
Hmm.
they start being very honest, not many
Hmm.
Adventists
Hmm.
escape that in one form or another. I know when I was 7 or 8, I had a lot of
So
trauma around that concept of running to the hills and would
yes,
I be saved? Is
yes,
my probation already closed? I remember
yes,
the sin last week,
yeah,
forgot to ask forgiveness. That's too late now,
yeah,
and that kind of thing. So look, let's dive into all that
yeah.
in a minute. But first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself and leading up to those traumatic moments that led to actual psychosis. So give us a bit more background prior to that.
Sure, yeah. So, as is the case with many Seventh-day Adventists, I'm fourth generation or something, born and bred, and um, I grew up in Michigan. It's one of the like the most conservative areas, and my family wasn't actually especially conservative, and I remember being around 10 or 11, and it was like I saw through the whole thing because I remember them talking about Mormons and Latter-day Saints being cults, and I was like, "Well, what is a cult?" And they're like, "Well, they have their own prophet," and I, like, got bug-eyed, and I'm like, "Do we
Yeah.
qualify?" And then it's the backflips of like, "Well, those are just, like, Satan's
Mhm.
decoys," and and when they were talking about the Adventist church being the remnant church, I was like, they're saying that about themselves. Like, that's a claim. It's a
Yeah.
claim. Like, wouldn't everybody claim that? Like, either a church either wouldn't make that
Yeah.
claim or they would, but no one's going to come out and be like, we wanted to let you know we're not the Revenant Church. So I was a kid seeing
Yeah.
that. But then I think this is where the trauma all comes in. I was looking for that deep emotional connection. And kind of early on in my teenage years, I was, doing the normal teenage thing. And I just wasn't feeling that emotional depth that I was looking for there. And so I was given the conflict of the ages set for my baptism at 10 years old. And it was sitting on my bookshelf in my bedroom. And I thought, if this lady really is a prophet, I should see what she wrote. Like, 13 years into this, no one had ever really read her. They kind of you heard a lot of people talk about her, and I think this is normal. Honestly, I don't even really remember anyone reading me the Bible.
Mhm.
Like, I remember being a kind of a middle-aged kid, probably 13, and going, "Oh, I wonder what's in this book." Man, I grew up going to Adventist schools and all of that. Uh, so then I went down hard on Adventism, 13 years old, um and the thing that really kind of suckered me in was the fourth commandment. And it was like, well, yeah, this has got to be, God's true church because it's Sabbath keeping and that sets it apart. So then I was like, well, if this is God's true church and Ellen White is its prophet, then like what she says really
Mm.
matters. It really, really matters. And it was just all downhill from there. I went to a self-supporting school out in Montana, and it was a couple who read the who ran this very small school like out of their home off grid. And honestly, it was a pretty cool experience in a lot of ways. If I could have taken out stupid rules and terror of the end times and all of the programming to like go live off grid for the rest of your life, it was a phenomenal place. Like, we went hiking and backpacking
Yeah.
and built igloos and really close friendships, like friendships for life. But I was on a winter camp out sleeping in the igloo when I first learned about the investigative
Mhm.
judgment. I remember sitting under the stars just outside of Glacier National Park, just this beautiful winter evening, sitting around the campfire. And it's like, at some point Jesus will stop forgiving your
Mm,
sins. And it's just like, oh yeah, that must be the way that it is. And it just
mm,
destabilizes like everything inside of you at that
mm.
moment. And I was one of those people, like I was reading testimonies to the church and like spiritual gifts and just and I knew the compilations weren't giving the whole picture. I was reading like the original work, I was just in so deep every day. And I cannot tell you how many times I read Great Controversy and Desire of Ages. And of my own accord, I became a colporter. And at the end of the day, it'd be like, PTL, praise the Lord, how many great controversies I sold. Like, people are going to be in heaven
Mhm.
now. But there was that, honestly, colportering was the deepest cult of the whole thing that I
Yes.
experienced because I was living in a group at 14 years old. We were eating 2 meals a day. We were going door to door in strange neighborhoods alone with nothing but a walkie talkie, sometimes going into people's
Mm,
houses. We weren't even carrying phones back then. And all of the programming was like, you need to go faster, go work harder. Like souls are gonna be lost. Like
mm,
souls are gonna be
mm.
lost. And it would be like we had 2 days off a week, but it was like, well, why don't you just like try to sell some books in the parking lot? And honestly, I was super good at it. And but it was more than that. Like I did it, I think 3 or 4 summers, and it was just abusive. Like, um,
Mm,
they would like rally you up, like
mm,
rah, rah, rah,
mm.
and I just was not into that. They would keep us working till 8, 9, sometimes 10 at night, knocking doors.
Yeah.
And one night I
Crazy.
remember telling the leaders, take us home. Like it's dark. Like people are going to
Yeah.
bed. And they're like, no, but we're doing good. Like God is blessing, blah,
Mm.
blah, blah. And
It's
I
crazy
was
when you think
bad.
about it.
I went It was crazy.
Mm,
I went and knocked on someone's doors, the nice neighborhood outside of Detroit. And they were like, what are you doing? And I told them the whole thing. And I was like, call the cops. And I was like, we need to get out of here. So they did. And the cops came and I told them, and I was like, look, this is what's going on. And then they kicked us out and sent us home. But I think because I was like that person, they would like assign me extra chores, like early morning breakfast prep and like late night scribing till midnight. And I just wouldn't go. I just wouldn't go. And oh man, it was just,
yeah.
man. But this is the thing, is that all of these experiences, whether it's school, church, family, colporting, it's all coercive control. It's all mind games.
Yes.
And when you start waking up and seeing that, it is an alternate reality. Like it is sci-fi because you're like, my entire life has been abuse.
Yeah. There's very little pastoral care,
So
isn't there? I noticed that when I was quite young, that Adventism was all about getting the
mhm,
message out there, bringing people in. But once people came in, right, you can help us bring people in
mhm,
or just sit over there. There was very little
mhm,
actual pastoral care, that and
mhm.
anything that was pastoral care was kept in record, how many people helped this week? 5, and the pastor made 6 visitations, and
Ugh,
it was just all very
yeah.
checklisty and very scripted.
Well, and when you say pastoral care, what would have come to my mind back then is like, because I love you, I'm correcting
Yeah.
you. It would have been discipline.
Yes.
Like if the pastor cares, they're going to admonish you in the Lord. It's not discipline, they're admonishing you.
Yes. Yeah.
And then like that sick nervous system gut drop, that was called conviction. And like the Holy Spirit got woven in with you feeling sick in your stomach.
Yeah.
What the heck? So yeah, so I went to that school, and then let's see. So there's high school. I went there all 4 years. Then I went to Southern Adventist
Oh, yeah.
University and got my nursing degree, and I also got my MRS degree. I was working at Camp Asable summer camp where I met my husband, and then he was going to school in Loma Linda, so we went out there together. And I ate friends. I ate lunch with all my friends at the front table in the calf, and like even though it was Southern, they called us like the All Saints table because we were like holier even than the rest. We were like the cream of the crop. I was probably the worst one of the holiest group, whatever that means. But
Oh,
yeah, I'm just to say, like, yeah, I never dreamed I'd be a religious trauma coach. Like I would never
because you
believe
were
you.
running that with the
And I
people
taught
that were
my
the more fundamentalist
Oh man.
initiating a lot of
Oh
these
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
things.
Because the wild thing is, once you start thinking in terms of there being a remnant, it doesn't stop there. There's a remnant of the remnant of the remnant of the remnant. And like I was in. Yeah. There's just so many wild thoughts where it's like, well, the Bible doesn't really talk about rock music, but it's better not to risk it.
Yeah.
It's like throw any thought in there, and it's like, well, just better be safe than sorry. And you just become like more and more and more and more extreme. Um, but it's like, oh, that line from Ellen White, heaven will be cheap enough. And underneath of that, it's saying you got to pay a price.
Yeah.
Whatever price you're paying, it's cheap enough. That's just
Yeah.
wild.
And what I've noticed with
So,
other fundamentalist religions that carry on with a lot of this kind of behavior, that many of them aren't as organized as Adventists are. Adventists have like a sales funnel. It's very much like a pyramid marketing scheme. The way they do this is
ooh,
systematized, and that's kind of what I was thinking earlier, that
uh huh.
that therefore, in many ways, it's quite an effective process. um, I've been involved with other
Yeah, I mean,
denominations.
evangelism is a big,
Yeah,
yeah, the just the whole cult ordering
yeah,
thing
that's right.
really
It's
is
all a
huge. Yeah,
sales
yeah,
funnel.
I like all the
And
net
yeah, oh
95 and
yeah,
net
yeah.
98 and
And I remember when
yeah,
I
and
was
then they're
young,
always rebranding Ellen White's
yes,
books.
and often not putting her name on them.
Nope.
But when I was young, around 1983, I started playing music for lots of different denominations, and I did that right up until about 2014. So it's quite a number of years, regularly
Mhm.
playing music for many different denominations, from Catholics to Uniting Church to Anglicans, Episcopalians, Methodists, Baptists, the whole works. And while I noticed, a pendulum swing in many of the denominations with regards to standards and whether they were strict or conservative or not, very few of them, I can't think of any apart from a couple of Pentecostal ones that were more trying to do it in a local area. I can't think of any that were as effective as Adventism in being a pyramid marketing scheme. In fact, just a quick plug for next.
Wow, what a fascinating
Yeah,
word.
a quick plug for the next 3 shows. Tomorrow, Dr. Clinton Baldwin is talking about his new book, all about the investigative judgment and how it's a fabrication. Next week, Ryan Day is back on, this time next week. And then the next day after that, I have Walter Ray's lawyer, Jim Wagner, who is going to be talking about
Oh,
the Davenport. There was a book that Walter Ray wrote called Pirates of Privilege, which he had to not sell because they were going to take away his sustentation, his super fund. So, the next 3 shows are dealing with all of this kind of stuff that we're talking about. And it's so good that you're on today, because it's going to prepare us for seeing the strings behind the scenes. And
you've got a sweet lineup
sweet
coming.
lineup coming, and every single show in the next fortnight is really talking about this high control, and Adventists have mastered the
Mm,
scripted, systematic,
mm,
and with
mm.
the interview with Jim Wagner, the actual Ponzi schemes that they got involved with. I don't know if you know, but the
Mm,
1979
mm.
Davenport issue, which was a Ponzi scheme that the church put their own money into as well. The church invested
Oh
something
my
like
gosh.
$29 million, $1979, not what it extrapolates to now. And they just constantly are caught up in these kind of dodgy actions and behaviors and financial schemes. So,
I'm just so proud to say that 15% of my income went that way for a lot of
yeah,
years.
yes, that's right. Systematized income, from tithing to,
Oh,
paying. What's the other thing that Ellen White?
yeah, I need to write a book and convince everybody that an angel gave it to me and that it says they owe me on behalf of God. I mean,
Oh,
why stop at
yeah.
10? Like, let's go for like 25%. And like,
See,
really?
that's another
And,
interesting.
it's like you stop and think about it. Like, God's got the cattle on 1,000 hills, but He really does need your 10%. Don't think about
Yeah,
it too
no,
hard.
don't think about it too much. And that's another interesting point, when people are encouraged to give of their finances. That just didn't come out of the air. I think Ellen White knew a lot more of what was going on with the money in the sales funnel. Yeah.
She said, give your money to the conference even if they're using it terribly, because she said your duty is to obey God and their duty is to obey God. So if they're disobeying God, that's between them and God. Keep sending your
Yeah.
money. She said, write them a letter, and then leave the results with God.
Yeah.
And this is the wild thing about religion across the board is when you throw God into the mix and you start saying anything about God, what God expects, what God wants, leave it with God,
Yeah.
whatever. The leverage for psychological manipulation is
Yes.
unparalleled. It is existential.
Yes. I don't know if you've heard is it Phil Yancey? He kind of admitted to having an affair, and he's written a lot of
Yeah,
amazing books.
that's been the big
When
one lately.
people say that sort of stuff, I don't judge him, and I look at the books and the material he's written, and I take it for what it is, and because humans are flawed, and he wasn't claiming to get these messages from God.
Hmm.
When people start going down the
Hmm.
path of, well, Ellen White was flawed, and just because she was a prophet doesn't mean she wasn't a flawed human being. Yeah, but it's fine for a human to be flawed and make
Hmm.
massive mistakes, but
Hmm.
still produce content that is
Hmm.
inspirational. But if you're claiming that those
Hmm.
inspirational words come from God and you're using them to cattle prod people into certain paths and pathways and get money from them and get power from them, that's a whole different thing. It's like that's just sending
And
deflecting.
here's the underscore and the bold and the italics and the exclamation marks on that. I had a document. I need to dredge it up. A list of times she says about herself. It's like every word in the testimonies and in the prophecies and in this list. And she's like, I have been given by God, essentially verbatim. And that
Yes,
in another place, she says, either my works are from God or from Satan. There can be no halfway matter.
yes,
And she says these things about herself. But when I see Adventists today, almost every single one of them takes a very very modified stance with her, a very take it or leave it thing. And there's just so much cognitive dissonance in
yes,
that to me, the biggest one being if if you're saying she's the lesser light shining light on the greater light, because that's what Adventists say about Ellen White relating to the Bible being the greater light. The hell did you need a lesser light shining light on a greater light? And then if you are picking and choosing which parts of her to listen to, what matters, what's relevant, then aren't you like even some kind of yet lesser light now, like superseding the
yeah,
whole nonsensical stack?
yeah. I know.
The cognitive dissonance alone, like, I mean, psych ward is going to be making a nice
Yeah,
profit.
and then when you hear the scholars and the academics who for years and years and years have produced material that really shocked us, they released books about what was going on behind the scenes, what Ellen White was really
Yeah.
like, and yet when push comes to
Yeah.
shove, they are the ones defending her, and they then bring out the cherry-picked nice comments, and she was a lovely woman, and look what she did all around town, and it's so disingenuous when people who know better act as the watchtower guards, protecting the Adventist faith.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
almost culpable because they're almost culpable for
Oh, yeah.
continuing this
Yeah.
legacy of
Especially if
lies.
they have a financial
Yeah,
advantage,
yeah.
benefit
Well, they sell
to,
books, and they
yeah,
feel
they're
important in
employed
the
by the
hierarchy.
denomination.
Um, yeah,
I don't know if you've run across the story of, I think it's Ellen White's like great granddaughter. She was raised on the property of the White estate out there. What, I'm starting to forget the names now, but Ellen White's big property like out west. And when she went to college, or I think in her early 20s, she wanted to invest herself into like writing an autobiography about grandma. And so she started digging through all the documents in the GC, and she was going into the White estate, and she pulled out, started getting to work. And what she was looking at was so shocking, appalling, like twisting the narrative. There was so much abuse, manipulation, cover up, even things her grandma did. There was sexual abuse throughout her family. And she was well into the project, and it got so dark. She stopped. And now she speaks out publicly everywhere she can against Adventism. And that's the direct descendant.
Yeah, there's the fruits. By their fruit.
Good for her.
Yeah. So when you're going through school, you're at Southern, you're one of the kind of more traditional conservative kind of Adventists. At what point did you start going, hang on, I'm starting to feel a bit of trauma going on here with the IJ and the sanctuary doctrine and close of probation? Was there a specific moment, or was there just a few years of just gradually tipping into fear?
It was an atom bomb.
Okay.
There was nothing gradual about it. So I mean, I held the course all through college, all through Loma Linda, which, man, that was a real juxtaposition because that's like very liberal Adventists out there and some ex-Adventists. And it was like, I remember an Adventist pastor from Michigan telling me, don't lose your faith in Loma Linda. And I worked at Loma Linda Children's Hospital, and I went through horrific workplace abuse there. But I didn't know it as such because, again, it kind of fit with so many things that had happened my whole life. And then we moved to Maryland. And it was when we were living in Maryland, the cookie started to crumble a bit. My husband, when I was 35 weeks pregnant with our first, he was diagnosed with a rare, very lethal leukemia. And he got rushed down the road to Hopkins, and he was, they said, this type of leukemia, you've got 4 weeks.
Whoa.
Either you kick the leukemia or you're going to kick the bucket.
Boy.
And we're probably 2 weeks in. It was just, oh man, it was total. Yeah, and he's here. He made it. But
yeah, wow. I was just going to ask that.
Yeah. He's putting the kids to bed. I had a real crisis with prayer at that point because it was like, wait, is it about how long I pray, how much I pray, my attitude towards prayer? Do I have to confess my sins? And then I had this really ridiculous thought just pop into my head that I was like, well, I'm lucky I have Facebook because now way more people are praying for us. That ought to increase the odds. And I was like, there is no way that some guy who made the universe, the odds went up because of Facebook. And then, like, everything anyone ever said to me about prayer or I ever thought about prayer got utterly absurd. And I even realized, I was like, wait, what? But let's just say, okay, because if say he dies, people are going to be like, well, someone's going to be like, well, that was God's higher will. Like, there was a higher purpose. And I was like, let's just say, for instance, it is God's highest purpose for some reason for him to die. And then I pray and he doesn't die. Didn't I just make everything like cosmically worse?
Yeah.
Like, if God has a plan and he's going to do it anyway, but I could alter that plan through prayer, wouldn't I just be like effing with fate?
Yes.
And I just couldn't pray.
It becomes a numbers game.
It didn't make sense. But what I did do was cry, and what I did do was scream, and now I'm like, I think that's prayer. I think that's prayer. My heart broke. So anyway, he got discharged like 2 days before our first one was born, breached via C-section. And then we walked home into our whole house remodel, and he was on disability going to 9 months of chemo infusions. And that just like flipped the world upside down. So that was 2018. And then our first daughter was has like an anxiety situation going on, but to me, it's like she was a bad kid. And so, how you're taught to parents, like you got to discipline and like, correct them. And I could see it was just fuel on the fire. And that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I was staying home parenting this kid who's crying all the time, very violent, banging her head, like, and all I get, is how to punish and correct her. And then you throw in there, if she doesn't develop a sinless character before the close of probation, she's going to hell.
Yeah.
And so much of that is contingent on my parenting, and like more absurdities started popping up because I was like, Okay, so just because like my kids happen to be born to me, now they have a higher chance of
Yeah.
going to heaven because I know all of this
Yeah.
stuff, or like some parent who's not as paranoid as me, now their kid has a less
Yeah.
chance.
If you've got the truth.
I started to see so many cracks in that, but like I had this existential terror myself of, was I going to make it into heaven? And I've always been kind of statistical, and I was like, straight as the gate, narrow as the way. Like my odds are bad in
Mm.
the first
Mm.
place. And then, throw kids. And it made me very controlling of my husband,
Mm.
because I would like be vigilant about how he kept
Yeah.
Sabbath,
Wow.
or whatever he was doing, if he was having his devotions, had he given his heart to the Lord, if he was upset with me, well, maybe he had never really been converted in the first place. And so it just made me a really fun woman to be married to. You can ask him about that sometime.
Better interview him one day too.
Like, yeah. Yeah. So when it was Sabbath, Friday night, right?
And you're talking
And I
about
would still
fairly
hear him down in
recent
the
times?
So
Yeah.
2018. Yeah, like 7 years
Wow.
ago. So he'd be downstairs like working on remodeling projects, and I'm like, it's sundown. And then I'm like, oh goodness,
Yeah.
like this is gonna be bad come judgment time. And I would like get on the piano and start playing a hymn to like manipulatively remind him that it's Sabbath. Uh, but I was like, I don't think he's ever given his heart to the Lord. So
Yeah.
that was fun. So then 2020, I guess 2019, I got pregnant with our second one. And then I was exhausted, sleep deprived. And at that same time, my mom got reading this lady, Margaret Davis. Do you know who Margaret Davis is?
Is ringing a bell. No, you're gonna have to tell me.
This is Ellen White meets 1,000 cows of dung shit. And then they had a baby, and they named her Margaret Davis. That like, it's Ellen White on steroids.
Really?
Oh,
she's
okay. So
what era is she?
here's what Margaret Davis did. She's still alive. She's very old. She's traveling evangelizing now, like overseas. She was at Weimar for a while, and I actually got to know some people who were like, they knew her in real life, and they're like, she is not a good
Wow.
person. So she wrote a book, but I say that I think her heart is in the right place. Like she's trying to do the best she can, but these systems turn you into not good people.
Yes.
That's what it
Yeah.
does. So she sat down to compile everything that Ellen White wrote about righteousness by faith, and she made like a 1,500-page situationship. And then she distilled that down to the very key points, or like she took out all the repetition and whatnot, kind of connected it together. It's basically a compilation of Ellen White quotes related to righteousness by faith. For those who aren't familiar with the term, essentially how Adventists view salvation and overcoming sin, that whole thing. So I got the condensed book. And she has like a series of lectures on YouTube, and my mom just kept talking about this. She's like, oh, everything makes so much sense. I totally get it, like I see it. Well, you think, like, I was already on the really conservative end of things, so you toss me like, toss me a spark at my dry tinder for the investigative judgment to make it even a little worse, and I'm like, I'm ready, like I'm primed for that bait. And so I get into Margaret Davis, and it's just this, like, you're getting hammered with that sinless perfection. Like, you have got to overcome every sin. What the heck is sin? Define sin.
Exactly.
And so, but then my brain is like, this is critical. I had
So you
to
were
know
going down
what sin is.
You were going down a dark rabbit hole.
Oh.
She's an Adventist, is she? This Margaret Davis.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Very Adventist.
Wow.
Yeah. And
so you're going down that rabbit hole.
I mean it when I say her heart is in the right place.
Right.
But the logic, it's so dark. It's so dark. So I was home alone, pregnant with like a kind of a special needs toddler, and I'm very extroverted, and I'm not at work, and then COVID hits. And so the whole, this is impacting the whole world, right? But when you're a fundamentalist Adventist and COVID hits, this is end times. This
Yeah.
is persecution. So I'm out there
Yeah.
like 8 months pregnant, bent over planting rows of kale, just hoping that one time that we won't die.
I'm sorry to
Doing
laugh. I'm
everything I
not
can
laughing.
find.
I'm not laughing.
It's
It's like
freaking
laugh or
hilarious.
cry. It's
No,
laugh or cry.
if I could have had like webcams through that phase of my life, and it's like if it wasn't already kind of scary enough, like COVID was scary. I knew young people, like young father who died and
Yeah.
like left his children in
Yeah.
our church. It was scary. But then
Yeah.
just make it existential. Oh, and that
Yeah.
investigative judgment might be the day that Jesus comes to your case. Wah, wah, bah, bah,
Yeah.
bah, bah, bah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why not wake up
It
early and confess those sins
intensifies.
one more time?
Yeah. It intensifies what an already dangerous, like,
Mhm,
recipe melting pot cooking
mhm,
um,
mhm, mhm,
of what Adventism actually is. It just intensifies
mhm.
all those things.
So, I just feel punched in my stomach just remembering how dark
Mm,
those days were, and I was cut off from everybody because it was COVID too, you know?
yeah, yeah.
Uh, even my one Lifeline camp meeting shut down. Uh, so and then I was so sleep deprived because I wasn't sleeping good pregnant. My toddler she was just getting multiple times a night. It was just, and then it's like, get up early and do your hour-long devotion so you might make it to heaven if you're lucky. And I would be up in the night nursing her, and I would just be like, memorize scripture. I memorized so much scripture. And I'm glad now, like it comes in handy, but not like in the way that I thought necessarily. But
Yeah,
I'm like sitting in the rocking chair, like, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Then I'd
yeah.
like contemplate, contemplate. And the words started to like bend and go, "Wah, wah." But I started to like connect different dots where I was like, might be like more going on here. So I think like something else that kind of came into the midst of this was and I'm so thankful for this. There's this doctor, Richard Roger Schwelt, Loma Linda, and he has this whole series called Medcram, but he also talks about the book of Esther. He did like a year studying the book of Esther and the symbolism in it. Incredible message. I'm like any of you out there, like go find this on YouTube. He shows how the entire Bible is metaphorically laid out in insane detail in the book of Esther, down to like the 12 names of Haman's sons that were hanged. Each one of those has a meaning in Hebrew that like tells this whole profound message. And I listen to this and I'm like, what? You could read the Bible this way? Like there could be a whole story symbolically within a story. And
Mm,
I was like a person in the desert just craving more of that.
mm,
I wanted it anywhere I could find it. And Ivor Myers would brush on the edges of that too, where there was like symbolism. And so I started getting into like all the numbers of the Bible and like, well, why these numbers show up all the time? Why do you see 40
mm,
all the time? Why do you see 12 all the time? What,
mm,
like, why these animals? And this is something we had in Adventism a fair bit in prophecy, talking about the symbol, the animals, and all of that. But when I started connecting the dots, and from the time I was 13, I had my Strong's Concordance. I was always looking up Greek and Hebrew things. And the narrative all started to get really shaky. And I was just seeing different things. But when you bundle everything I had going on in my life, and then I start looking at kind of this mystical side of scripture,
mm,
um, and and just the different directions that control was coming into my life. I was being controlled. My sanity was slipping, 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 slipping.
yes.
And started, I started talking about some of the things I was contemplating, like John 17:21. Jesus says, I would, Father, that they be in me as I'm in you and you're in me, so I'm in them, like this one. And I was like, well, the Holy Spirit's in us. Why are we always praying to God up out there? Like
Mm,
what's inside of me? What's
mm,
inside of me? Is there wisdom inside of me? Because isn't that the whole picture? And it was profound to go, maybe I know, maybe I have a source of wisdom inside of me. And when I started talking about that, it was so profoundly upsetting
Yeah.
to all the people
Yeah.
I was close to. And so they started kind of like talking among themselves and sort of sounding the alarm. And I never saw that coming. And all of that was very destabilizing to my sanity. Um, and my thoughts just sped up, my speaking sped up, and I went into just intense paranoia. And I and this was the first moment for me. I was sitting on my couch in the basement of my house, and there's my bookshelf with all my Ellen White books, just rows and rows and rows. And I remember looking all the way across the basement, and I was like, that is wrong.
Mm.
And I was like, there is something up with it. It was like my spidey senses were speaking, and they're like, I was like,
Wow.
that's just not right. It doesn't stack. It's fishy. And I started seeing all the red flags. I was like, why would one woman write so many books?
Mm.
And I was like, and why, and she financially profited off of that, didn't she? And why would she say to keep paying your tithe and offering to the conference even if they're doing the wrong thing with it? She financially profited off of that,
Exactly.
didn't she?
Yeah.
And why would there be this one small little church that's the ultimate remnant church, and
Yeah.
then their end times prophet dies 100 years ago, who's supposed to guide you through, and it all
Mm.
just started go boom, 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 boom.
Wow.
But it was so many realizations. It just fed that paranoia where I was like, then I was like, oh my goodness, like it's a trap. Everything's a trap. Like they funnel you in, like they suck you in. And I
Mhm.
think I was seeing the whole like pyramid scheme. And I'm like, it's
Mm.
like they hook you here, then they put you here,
Yeah.
and they just push you in. And I felt more intentional than it really is. Like it's
Yeah.
people doing it don't really know it. But at that time, it was terrifying. It
Yeah.
was just soul level terror for me. I was like, I have got to get out. But everyone in my world was Adventist, and they didn't realize, they couldn't see it. And I'm just like almost just screaming like out of my skin. And to them, it's just like I've just lost my mind. Um, and so I was really struggling in that time. So I left Maryland and came back up to Michigan, moved in with my parents for a little bit just for some more help. And everything just escalated a lot. And within a few days, I drove myself to the hospital. I
Yeah.
thought I just needed sleep. I actually think I really did just need sleep, but they checked me into the psych ward. Um, and that was the most intense and phenomenal and incredible experience of my life. Um, I'll tell you just one story. There was a guy named Mark there, and I was watching these people, and I could see immediately when I went in. I was scared because I'm a nurse, and I'm like, yeah, they're scary. They're homeless, they're alcoholic, they're suicidal, they're whatever. And I could see immediately every single one of them had trauma. And they never told us this in nursing school. No one ever told us why someone gets mental illness. And that always baffled me. It's like, then they're like, oh, it's genetic. And I'm like, there's more to it than this. And I was like, these people have insane stories. And I'm sitting there going, everybody here has totally wild stories except for me. I've had a great life.
So it's further zeroing in, putting your
Mm-hmm.
experience under a microscope.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And at that time, my family doctor said to me that she had seen signs of trauma in me for 2 years, and she was documenting and connecting the dots. And I was like, oh no, she's reading into stuff, like she doesn't know, blah, 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 blah. Um, but I started observing things about humans and about how trauma works and about what power and control is, what coercive control is, what abuse is, how the psyche works, how the subconscious mind, all of this stuff started showing up. And I was writing in there, and I started writing a lot. And I didn't even know I could really write before. That was how I started my writing. And I wrote something I called Life and Love. And it was about how really in life we all just want to be loved and to give love, but so often in our childhood that didn't go quite right, and it sort of sets everything off course, and we have pain, and then when we have pain we cause more pain, and it kind of spirals, and a lot of people pick up addictions to deal with how much pain they
Yeah.
have, and then we label them and shame them for the addictions when it makes sense to medicate your pain. And yeah, we could say, well, they should have better ways to medicate it. Well, you know what, not everyone can afford therapy.
Yeah.
And then it just makes all the problem worse, and we're othering the people who carries the heaviest load of trauma. And when I wrote that piece, it shook the psych ward. Like the people, my other inmates, they're like, give that to me. And this one lady takes it and she runs to the front desk. She's like, make copies of this. Everyone needs this. And they're like, people are like crying, and they're like, yeah, this is it. Like, this is what I've needed my whole life. Like you would see people just in that like suicidal grip, just like open up and like start to breathe again. And so this guy, Mark, he was this young guy. He was alcoholic, homeless, long brown hair. I was sitting in a windowsill at the end of the hall, and he's coming up to me one evening, and he's like trembling, but like strong. And he's like, Kristi, he's like, who do I look like? Who do I look like? And I'm like, you look like Jesus. And he goes, there's a reason for that. And he's like, I came here to talk to you. And he's like, you are going to change the world with love, but you have got to knock off this religious bullshit or you won't do anything. And he walks off. And I'm like, what the? Because in my mind, it's like, God sent me to the psych ward to witness to them. And I'm like, God wants me to make the psych ward Adventist. And
Wow. So
Mark says this to me, and I go back to
you were
my
still
room.
even holding on to Adventist
10,000%.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Because it's still, I was seeing the cracks, right? But my brain just can't even accept that like my whole reality has been a lie thus far. But I tell you, I went back to my room in that moment, and I was like, something like in my gut was like, Mark is right. Mark knows. Like that is the voice of God speaking to me. I don't know if I was quite say it that way now, but it's like, he's right. Mark is right. um there was a guy in there who came in and told us he had a demon, and the demon had his own name, his own voice. It was my next door neighbor. I was room 1, he was room 2. They had to sedate him every night, come give him meds, knock him out, because he was very violent. The demon would kick on at night, and you could hear his voice change. And we shared a wall. He was punching the wall, and you'd hear, he was like, oh, and it was like,
It's traumatic
it
in
was he
itself.
was this big Hispanic guy. It was so traumatic, but it was like he was such a beautiful soul. And you knew the minute it flipped and like the demon or whatever came on board. And a few nights of that, I heard that, and my heart's just like breaking for this guy. I had my Bible in there somehow. It was like the Remnant Study Bible, and I flip it open because can't Google anything. It flips open to the story of Jesus casting out a demon, and I was like, my whole life, I was like, can people really cast out demons? And it flips open, and I'm like, I see it's showtime. And
Yeah.
it's the book of
Yeah.
Mark. And so I'm like, God wants me to cast this demon out with Mark, doesn't he? Let's go, baby. And I don't know if it was like that night or the next day, but I was like, hey, Mark, do you know what I'm thinking? Are you thinking what I'm thinking? And he's like, I think I am. And I'm like, time to cast out a demon. He's like, yup.
Whoa.
It's like, let's go. So we go ask the guy, we're like, hey, do you want an exorcism for free? He's like, yeah, sure, sign me up. So we go down to the lunchroom. Why are they letting 3 inmates down in the lunchroom together with the door shut? Beyond me. But then we go in there. So we sit down, and I'm like, I don't know how to open. Like, what do you say? I don't know what I'm doing. And because I'm the one who headed this up, and Mark goes, we have come here today to cast out the demon. And he's like, according to the book of demons, every demon has a name and a role. And so by the order of Jesus, I will ask this demon what it does and what its name is. And he starts talking like he's conversing with the demon for a little while. It's exactly what Jesus did if you go look at the stories. And then he casts it out. And I'm like, this is gonna work. Is he making this? What are we doing? Like, what?
I love how you're going through this, but also being aware of your own process and thoughts simultaneously.
Yeah.
A lot of people
Oh
don't.
yeah. No, it
They
was the
put that
wildest thing.
metacognitive thinking aside, and they just go into the madness. Whereas you seem to constantly almost be holding your hand in it,
Yeah.
observing it as you would
Yeah.
as it was unfolding, which I think is
Yes.
probably
Oh,
what helped you
absolutely.
come out of it too.
Yeah. 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 Mental illness is so many different things. And um, mine was more of an acute trauma. A lot of times it's not even, it's not diagnosed as anything. It was that
Yeah,
moment when reality just gets too weird
yeah,
and it's all
it's
too
too
much and
much,
it
yeah,
bends for a
and
minute.
you
It's
just
just
break
too
down,
much.
yeah.
And I have also heard in ancient esoteric traditions, they called psychosis drowning in light. It's where you realize too many things at once and you drown.
Yeah,
And that's what it felt like.
yeah,
Um, so the next day we were at group and this guy Ernesto, he comes to group and he and we were like, Ernesto, how are you? And he's smiling and he's like, today is my birthday, my born again birthday. He said, my demon is gone and I am a new man. And I'm like, and he got discharged. He went home. It's fine.
wow,
Blew my mind. Blew my mind. And it was Mark that did that. Mark who told me I had to knock off my religious bull.
yeah. He was the one that looked like Jesus. Oh, hang on, Kristi's frozen. We've just lost Kristi there for a minute, and we'll bring her back on any second now.
Hello.
Hello, I don't know what happened there, but you were just talking about Mark, and I just said that he was the one that looked a bit like
I,
Jesus. Hang on, we'll just wait for it to
hello.
catch. Hello, we can hear you again now. You are back.
Okay.
But I was just saying,
Okay.
so Mark was the
Okay.
one that looked a bit like Jesus. Is that the one? That was the guy?
Yes,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
guy. Yeah, yeah. So he told me he's a Jesus follower, not a Christian, and he was spiritual, and that warped my mind in all the right ways. I need to write a book. I have so many other just
I was gonna
incredible
say this could be be
synchronistic.
a great movie as well.
It would, yeah, yeah. I would love to do that. I see it coming. I see it coming one day. Actually, I almost had a producer at one point. Then he got scared of me. Most people do.
Well,
um,
you're very authentic and real, and you're sharing some hard to face things. Humans want to kind of put a lot of that in a
mhm,
box.
mhm, mhm, mhm. To think someone has the capacity to cast out a demon and also say you need to give up your religious bullshit. How do you what even is that? I really couldn't make sense of everything that was happening either. Multiple people in there came and told me, like, hey, we know why you're here, we know your life's purpose. And I'm like, yeah, y'all are crazy. And I was just like, I was writing everything they said, I'm writing it down, I would just bring it, like, tell me all your weird shit. I'm not a nurse now, so I can just mess with you. But they kept telling me the same thing, like, you're here to change the world through love, something like that. And I was just like, why are you all saying the same thing? Like, this is just weird. And I was like, yeah, maybe they all conspired before I came in. Maybe they say this to everyone. But like a weekend, uh, we were at group one morning, and this brand new girl comes in, young girl, like fresh admit, just walks into group. No one's met her. She opens the door and I can see her look around the table like she's looking for someone. She's looking person to person to person. Her eyes land on me and she goes, you, I've been looking for you. I knew I'd find you here. She's like, I came here to tell you something. You're going to change the world through love. And I was like, stop. I
Yeah.
can't, like, I can't. Like, my brain couldn't even take it. And then she tells me more of this, like, oh yeah, I'm like a Jesus follower, but not religious, I'm spiritual. And I'm like, what but
What does
I
that
just
even
can't
mean?
eat.
Yeah.
I can't even. Yeah, I could be here all night telling you the stuff that went on in the psych ward that was incredible and beautiful. And it healed a deep, deep place in me. I experienced love there. True unconditional love. That's a word that gets thrown around so much that we think we know what it is. But I'm telling you, unconditional love, it's not loving the pretty, nice pieces of us, the pieces that put
Mm,
on a suit and go to church. It's loving our shit. It is
mm,
loving our brokenness. It's loving our rage. It's loving our pain. It's loving the pieces of us that gotten it wrong 10,000 times.
mm.
That's what unconditional love is.
Mm.
And
It's a
I
hard
felt that
one.
there.
It's a hard one to do, isn't it? There's a saying I read years ago, love those in your life without expectation, accept them as they are, and take what they want to give without judgment. And it's a nice sentiment,
Mm,
but very hard to put into practice.
mm,
But
mhm,
I think it's the direction people need to head in, um, to
mhm,
find a sense of calm, peace, that a sense of purpose and meaning.
mhm, mhm.
Because in many ways, if you don't offer unconditional love, what you are trying to do is control people.
Yep.
And
Yes, it's one or
mm,
the other. Yeah.
yeah,
And there's fear wrapped up for most people. There's fear of loving the messy pieces, fear of loving the broken pieces. And if there is one verse in the Bible that is so true, it is there is no fear in love because perfect love casts out fear. And but the truth is that each person has their own capacity to be able to love well, and we don't really get to just choose that. And what happens in the psych ward is that all our masks are off. You are seeing the
mm,
rawness of humanity without one single mask. And from a neurobiological perspective, our left hemisphere is where we hold up masks. It filters us. But our right hemisphere is the emotional, spiritual, intuitive side, and it actually is the first place that makes our decisions. But we normally filter everything through the left hemisphere, and so it comes out kind of clean, crisp, and polished. Well, in a psychotic break or a breakdown or whatever, the left hemisphere essentially goes offline and you're communicating straight into the right hemisphere. So all the trauma shows up, all the fear, all the pain, but it also is the place where a lot of that can shift. And what I have found is that true unconditional love and acceptance comes from the very bottom, the very basement of being human. It's the broken places.
yes, that's interesting.
And that's what you get when you hit rock bottom.
Yeah,
You learn viscerally what love is and what it isn't.
and I think in when people do the AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12 steps, I think one of the teachings is that unless you cannot heal unless you've hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
It's interesting, one of the
Yeah.
things, and I'm sure this is what, uh, is something that's right front and center for you, is that one would hope that people don't have to have a mental breakdown from the trauma of, in this case, the Adventist teachings of the investigative judgment. And I
Mhm.
think what's front and center for you is to help people avoid that car crash, to help them slow down, like the person with the
Mhm.
the slow sign, slow
Mhm.
down, pull over, let's talk about it. Because yes, there's a rock bottom you have to reach to be able to heal, but surely the rock bottom can be reached with someone holding you, nurturing you, helping you through it in a less dramatic way. One would hope that that
You
can happen, but
Mhm.
perhaps the teacher, the healer, the person who is going to bring people to a place of peace. I don't think people can be in that position of being a healer unless they've been through the really bad
Yeah.
stuff.
Yes.
But
This is a
hopefully not
Carl
everybody
Jung
has to
quote.
go through that, but some people like yourself do have to
Yeah.
make it an
Yeah.
easier landing for others. I
Yeah.
hope that people
Yeah.
watching today who have, been through this kind of trauma, and those who might be heading towards a breakdown, can actually even reach out to you, or find other people who can help them have a softer landing to that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That is exactly what brought me to this place was I was like, I don't ever want someone to have to be as alone and confused and
Yes.
oof, just wind tossed as I was. Carl Jung says only the affected physician can heal.
Yeah.
Um, and but unfortunately, the truth is most of the time, before someone has hit some sort of rock bottom, uh, the concept of religious trauma coach is can be really scary. And so usually I connect with people either a little ways into their rock bottom or a bit up the other side.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
how it is.
Yeah. Yes. So that's interesting because there are going to be people who have been through the wreckage and need you as well to help them be,
Hmm.
you've used the word
Hmm.
coach. Anyone, and you've mentioned too, that's not just Adventism, anyone that's experienced this kind of religious trauma
Hmm.
is going to be all sorts of parts of the spectrum, the bell curve. And maybe
Hmm.
even people that are mentally healthy that haven't even begun to go down that path can benefit from what you've got to say. Speaking to young
Yeah.
people that haven't even heard of the time of trouble and the close of probation yet, how wonderful would it be to get that message out to them as well? My daughter's,
It almost feels like there's something though that they have to viscerally experience the
yes,
pain of thinking thoughts like that
yes, that's
to
true.
realize I look at it now. In many ways, I mean, really deeply, I'm incredibly grateful for my whole journey as an Adventist, all the pain and everything. Um, because it's incredibly developmental when you can integrate it. Because
Yeah,
this conversation, the depth of the conversation you and I can have, it would be so different had we never experienced
yeah,
something like that.
yeah,
And once you've experienced it, you not only see Adventism for what it is, but you can learn about power control, cults, coercive control, manipulation, all these things. And so it can help you not only not get into that, but you learn what freedom and love are. And
yes.
sometimes you have to learn things opposite. You got to figure
Yeah.
out what it isn't before you can know what it is. So it's
Yeah,
it's
that's very
it's
true.
great.
Isn't that an interesting thought you've said there, that balance? Like no one's gonna learn unless they touch the hot plate and
Yeah,
experience,
yeah.
"Oh, I'm not gonna do
Right.
that again."
Right.
You have to
Right.
be
Don't you take
burnt.
the 1-year-old to the stove and go like,
Yeah,
all
yeah,
right, put your finger
yeah.
on it.
You have to be burnt to some
Yeah.
degree to
Yep.
be able to
Yep.
be healed, and I love your word integrated. And I
Hmm.
think every tribe of people has healers in it that perform the function or carry out the function of integrating. They've been through so much. They've been out in the forest or out in the bush or out in wherever it is, away from the tribe. They've been hurt. They've had to survive. They've had to claw their
Hmm.
way back near the
Hmm.
fire,
Hmm.
to be with
Hmm.
others. And
Hmm.
hopefully they can integrate people enough to experience a bit of the pain, but not fully go through it. I
Hmm.
look at this with my kids, and you'd be the same with yours. You see this wild world out there, and you want to protect them, but you know there's going to be some things that they have to face and go through.
Hmm.
Um, my one of my daughters, she's just turned 13. She goes to the local Adventist school, even though I left about 10 years ago. I trust a lot of the teachers there. I used to teach up there myself when I was an Adventist.
Hmm.
Um, but they'll have the itinerant preachers coming through once a month or even every chapel day or whatever. And my other daughter, who's just about to turn 12 in a couple of days, she's homeschooled Montessori, doesn't even think about that stuff. It's not even on her palette, you know.
Hmm.
She has normal
Hmm.
life struggles, and I can see them both having normal life struggles. But the additional weight of the Adventist, Jesus coming soon, are you ready? Am I going to make it? Even permeates into my eldest daughter, the 13-year-old, even when it's just the itinerant preachers coming through once a month. And it's a
Hmm.
different
Hmm.
thing to have to deal with. On the one hand, both of them have to deal with normal life trauma stuff, but Renee, the eldest, has got this little bit of extra stuff that's just plotted in there
How
about,
fascinating.
yeah, she's got, and I'm constantly having debriefing and having conversations about, hey, well, this may not be the case, and Ellen White may not actually have had any visions, and it's a fascinating thing, but it's that balance we're talking about. At what point do we allow our kids to experience traumas and learn from mistakes? But
Yes.
are there things we can
Yes.
actually totally protect them from? And
Right.
honestly, I'm
Right.
starting to think that if I could totally protect my eldest from any itinerant preacher coming through and preaching Adventism, that would be a good thing.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's so situational.
Yes, that's true.
Uh,
Yeah.
y- my kids are going to a Christian school now, and you go in with this mindset of, oh, this is interdenominational, and so it should be pretty low key, and like, we believe in Jesus, and you're kind of open minded, and in a lot of ways it's not. Like, so much of Christianity is very similar, and there's just a
Yes.
lot of indoctrination. I mean, and to me, it's not even like theologically correct to like hyperfixate on the 10 commandments when you understand the new covenant, and yet that, like, Christianity at large is still very fixated on the 10 commandments. And um but we walked into class the other day, and they're playing this thing about, like, go be a missionary and win souls for
Yeah, I
Christ.
know.
And I was like, ah. And I'm like, I felt like saying to my daughter, like, it's okay if you want to go home. I mean, I wouldn't hold it against you. And she's like, no, 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 like, that's okay, mama. Like, I understand. And I'm like, you don't have to go be a missionary witness to anyone, honey. And she's like, I know.
Yeah,
So, but
yeah.
she's doing great with it. And I can see, and we have conversations. And the wildest thing to me is, I tell you, when Jesus said, like, become like little children,
Mm,
children know in their gut what love is, and they know what God is. And that's kind of like the same concept. But like, and I don't know, I only have 2 kids. My 7-year-old, like, knows if someone is saying something about God that isn't right, it's not because the Bible says so, it's because her gut knows. And
yes.
if she hears something about, oh, go witness, she'll be like, nah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and I let her follow
Yeah,
that
that's good.
inner knowing, and
Yeah,
I'm not indoctrinating her into anything, and she's just becoming this incredible little kid.
yeah. That's great. And like you say, it's situational. We're all in different situations. We're all doing the
Yes,
best we can.
personalities, and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And I like what you said also when you were just before you went into the hospital, you were looking at the Ellen White books and your gut was telling you.
Yeah.
So we've got to train our kids to rely on this kind of gut
Yes,
feeling, which actually is
yes,
often right. Put a little bit of logic
yes,
and rational thinking in there in the mix as
yes,
well,
yeah,
and
yeah,
make sure there's some
yeah,
fail-safe ways out. But
yeah, yeah.
but the thing is, the indoctrination of Adventism with Ellen White, even though your gut was telling you to run, it had already captured you. It had its hooks in you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, for
Oh, yeah.
someone to have gone, essentially within the last 5 to 7 years from being a really committed, conservative, almost legalistic Adventist
Oh, yeah.
through a psych ward experience into a position now where you're obviously happy, integrated, whole. I'm sure you've got issues and problems and flaws like everybody else.
Oh, of course
But
not.
but but that journey now out of the psych ward and letting go of some of these hooks that were in you, what were some of the specific Adventist hooks that
Mm,
had captured
mm,
you that you worked on getting out? So we know the investigative judgment. Were there
mhm,
other ones as well, or was that kind
mhm.
of your main thing?
Well, so it was 2 more years after the psych ward till I left the Adventist church.
Mm,
Oh, just what a complicated journey. When I got out, that instigated our move back up to Michigan, where our families are. And But my entire infrastructure was destabilized. Like, I had quite crippling kind of ongoing anxiety, and I was not in the place to rock the boat that bad at
no,
all. Still
no,
2
no.
little kids. So fall of 2023, I ran into another Adventist who said something kind of cheeky and disparaging about Ellen White, and I was like, I like this guy. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I told him about the book, Steve Daly, Ellen White Psychobiography.
Yes.
I hadn't read it. I had not, but I was referencing it, and I'm like, Kristi, it's time. And I didn't know what was going on inside of me, but after the psych ward, my faith died. Like, I would go hear a sermon and I would just like shoot holes in it. And I'm like, this is just BS. Like,
Mm.
the nursery at church had this stupid picture of Noah's Ark. And it was like, one day Marie was reading Jimmy a story, putting him to bed about Noah's Ark. And she says, or like, I think Jimmy goes, Mama, what about all the kids that drowned? And she's like, yeah, very few people made it on the ark. And like, Jimmy went to bed in a very serious mood because a lot of kids died. I'm like, what? Anyway, whatever. But so I just could see it. I could see it everywhere, but I couldn't, I didn't have the fortitude to address it. So finally I figured out, oh, this is called deconstruction. That might be what's going on. So I like secretly joined a Facebook group at midnight and kept it like hidden off my Facebook wall. You know, this is the beginning. And everyone in there is just like an atheist cracking jokes. And I did enjoy their jokes a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I think there's a baby in the bathwater here, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, so then I connected with this guy, and then I'm like, I gotta read this psychobiography. But it's like, well, I couldn't order it on Amazon. That'd be in my search history. It couldn't get delivered to my
Wow.
house. You can't go find it at a bookstore. You know, I can't have any money trail going to this. And so I
Wow.
downloaded it through a library app that I got on my phone for free. Um, and we my husband didn't know that I was questioning at that point, because the stakes are so high, you know, to come out. And we were
Yeah.
camping, and I'm reading this on my phone, and it was Sabbath, and he's like, "What you reading?" I was like, "A book about Ellen White." And I devoured that book like a third of the way in. See, and the thing is, like, I had read so much Ellen White, even that, like, that 9-volume huge set that Arthur or whatever wrote, her
Yes. Yeah.
biography. I read that whole thing. So
Wow.
so when I'm reading Steve Daly, he's referencing different stories. I know the whole story. I
Yes.
know what he's referencing. And every single one of his references, I went and looked up that story in the source work if I
That's
could get
good.
it.
He would have
And I
appreciated
read
that.
it there, because then people are gonna be like, oh, well, he was taking it out of context. Go look up the
Yeah.
sources. He's
That's right.
not.
That's right.
He's
He's not.
not.
He's not. Yeah.
It is
He.
your
Yeah.
own church who's taking it out of context and
Yes.
twisting the narrative.
100%. And that's the thing. Like, I've interviewed him several times on the show, and you can tell that's not a frustration. It's just his thing that he refers to is that he has put all the source material there. They constantly tell him that he's just speculating and making it up. But
They gotta say something.
if you go and see the source material,
Right.
he has absolutely been pedantic in making sure it's there.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
And
interesting that you were able to
there's
go and check it. That's great.
yeah. You get so much online these days, and people didn't used to have access to anything like this, you know. But then I got into Former Adventist Fellowship, and I wanted some of Dale Ratzlaff's books.
Yeah.
Again, how do I get it? I can't have like a mail trail, a money trail, a paper trail, whatever. So I was in like a homeschool hiking group, and Colleen Tinker was mailing the books for free for me to other moms of this hiking group so I could read it. And okay, you know Mike Colburn.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Had a
So I
couple of
grew
good
up,
interviews with him and his wife.
yeah. So I grew up with them, and I was friends with him on Facebook, and he was posting some stuff he was just posting some Bible verses about Romans, and I could see which ones he was posting, and I was like, ooh. And I was like, I see what rabbit trail he's going down. So I sent him a private message. Hadn't talked to him in years. He's an old guy. He's much older than me. Uh, and hey, so how are you and Adventism doing these days? And come to find out, we're kind of on the same path. And that was, I was so scared to like tell my husband I was questioning for fear of what exactly might happen. Like I thought, that could be like the end of my marriage. Like it could just start this whole thing. And Mike and Jen were really the ones who held my hand on that journey. Um, so so we were in the car one day, my kids and my husband Ryan and me, and my older daughter starts asking, she was like, after Jesus rose from the tomb, was he in a physical body? And I'm like, well, Adventists would say so, but like Christians don't. So, and I'm like, I decided to just answer her as a Christian. And my husband's there and he knows I'm giving the wrong answer and I'm letting him hear that. And so he brought it up to me that night and I'm like, here we go. And he was kind of like, well, I think you're getting deceived, but like, I'll look into it and like, I'm sure we can, correct your erroneous thinking. So he dove straight into it, like lunch break and everything. He's just like reading. He wasn't reading anti-Adventist stuff. He was reading Adventist stuff and critically thinking about it. And 2 days later, he comes home from work and he's like, yeah, points for the home team. I think you're winning, honey. And he just unhinged it. And it 6 weeks later, Thanksgiving Eve, he's talking about something, just we're processing this constantly up to like 2 a.m. every night, chewing on stuff. And like I looked at him that night and I said, you need to know something. And I was like, I'm not thinking about this anymore. I'm done. But I knew I was done when I was a third of the way into Steve Daly's book.
Yes.
And he kind of like chokes and he's like, can you give me a minute? But I think I'm done. I just need a minute. Cause he'd only been in it like 2 weeks, like challenging it. And I was like, yes, I totally understand. I honor you. And I'm like, but I know I'm not going to Adventist church much longer. I simply can't, but take all the time you need.
This is your
And
husband, you mean? You're
yeah, it's
talking
my
about, yeah.
husband. Yeah. So this
So
was
had he
end of
started
November.
reading? Had he started reading any material like Steve Daly's?
Devoured. He was devouring. Yep, Steve Daly. And then we got into that whole like the white estate fraud. What
Yeah.
was that? Yeah, man, wild stories. Like, I mean, even if you're not Adventist, like if you ever enjoyed like, like like horror or
Yeah.
just any kind of
You just
drama.
can't take your eyes off it. It's just like
Yeah, oh
melodrama
yeah.
on steroids.
No, it's as weird and dark as any other cult out there. Um, so yeah, he got into all of that. But like, so the thing is, we were going to church with his family. His dad was the head elder at the church we were at. And we were covering our tracks this whole time. No, no one knew because we knew how it would escalate, like if anyone found out.
Yeah.
And both of our families were going to know immediately if we missed a week. Is how it was. And
Wow.
so we were just, planning out. I was still playing piano for Cradle Roll every Saturday, and all this stuff. And so my family was getting together for Christmas and we were about ready. And so it's like, hey, let's have Christmas dinner. And then it's Sabbath afternoon. I was like, hey guys, come out to the living room. We're going to tell you something. Mic drop. And a couple days earlier, we had told his family. And it is so gut wrenching because that you are turning their world upside down.
Yes. Oh, they think that you're not going to be in eternity now.
Yeah. No, it's horrible. Watching you yourself consciously put your family through that level of distress is horrific.
Yeah.
But I realized and I knew and I told myself, I'm not putting them through this.
Yeah.
The Adventist church is putting them through this. I'm simply choosing to step away from that system. And the consequence is these are the thoughts they're going to have. It is awful. It's awful.
Yeah. There's a lady,
And
I
then I
won't
went and got a
mention.
wedding ring for the first time in my
Oh,
life. I've had 2
yeah,
years. I've been married like 13 and a
that
half
would have shocked
years.
them.
And very upsetting, just very upsetting. And I was like gauging the timing to get earrings,
Mm.
and just, and
The
it's like,
There's
it
a
has so,
lady, there's a lady that used to work for 3ABN. I won't mention her name, but you'd easily track her down. She used to do a lot of the kids programs and stuff. And her daughter said the same thing that you'd said to your family, that she was leaving the Adventist church. And in there's someone watching today. Actually, I just saw them in the chat, who told me this story. They were there when she said it, and they're watching right now, which is interesting. That she said she can't wait to get to heaven, where God will erase her memory of her daughter, and she won't have to feel bad about the loss anymore. Thank you, Jesus, for
um,
erasing the memory of my daughter. Like, that is just
God,
when he
that
told
is
me that,
sick. That
I
is
know it
diabolical.
is sick. And I bet,
Man,
that is just sick. And
whoever you are, I
this
want
is
you to hear
someone that,
me on your behalf.
yeah. So my friend, he's watching right now, but he over on Facebook, but he was shocked. He and his wife were just shocked that she would say that.
I would hope so.
Yeah, and she's an Adventist
God.
leader.
You know, I said this. I said this to there's pieces of my story I'm not. This is just not meant for the internet. But if I thought that my child was going to hell for all eternity, wouldn't logic tell me that I would hyper connect with them now? Because this is all we've got.
Yeah,
Why would you cut off your child who's going to hell? But this is where it gets psychological, because if it was rooted in reality, if you really thought about it logically, if it was rooted in logic, you would hyper connect with that child. But it's a big vegan bacon sandwich wrapped in over smoked terror
yeah, yeah,
of going to hell, because if okay, if anyone doesn't know, for this, the storyline goes in Adventism that when the end times come, the former Adventists are going to be the ones persecuting you worse than anybody else. And it is like, it's not just that, it's that like we are the arch enemy. Like, it's very terrifying to them, because when we have conversations like this, like, what if we lead souls astray, right? Like, what if we take more people to hell? And so it's like, the wildest thing I saw was Adventists could not figure out, should they reach out to you in love, check in, send you a warm text, invite you over, or like just be warm and friendly and try to, win you back to Christ? Or should they drop you like a hot potato because you're dangerous? And they would like swing is like, "Woo!" And like the ones who are a little more open minded, they were more towards like that reconciliation. Or like some of them would even say something like, it's not about being Adventist, it's about loving Jesus. And you're like, well, I mean, I would agree, but like your church doesn't teach that.
yeah,
uh so it's, again, it's that profound cognitive dissonance, because as a
yes.
human, by means of logic, like if someone changes their belief, that doesn't change your relationship.
No, it shouldn't.
But by means of cult programming and control, it does. And
It
so it's like,
does.
yeah, it's just that divide. But
And
there was
you,
someone who used to text us happy Sabbath every single Sabbath afterwards.
yeah,
And it's like, what
afterwards,
does
yeah.
this even mean?
I
Like,
know.
this is,
That's so
no,
passive
stop,
aggressive.
stop.
It's
So
passive.
passive aggressive.
And what you were
And really,
saying,
she's a kind, loving person. Like,
oh,
she
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
see that it's just gross.
When you mentioned earlier that, you were cautious for a couple of years before you left, before you announced, you were worried that people would
Yeah.
see a paper trail that you'd bought Steve Daly's book
Yeah.
even, what kind
Yeah.
of crazy
Yeah.
mind control is that?
Yeah.
But the reality, and I've found this out too, like coming up in a couple of months, it's my 10th anniversary from having left. And it's interesting as that date approaches, that I can kind of see the feeling of and a lot of the actual data backs it up. It's not just a feeling of my life just has more meaning and purpose, and
Oh,
I feel a sense of liberation I just didn't feel before. I loved the people. I had
yeah.
great connections, like you said. You've got haystacks
Yeah.
and nice
Yeah.
gatherings, and you go on
I
trips
love
and
that
all the
haystacks
good
came
stuff. Yeah,
first.
yeah, that's right. That's my favorite, and I can still eat haystacks. That's the
Yeah,
interesting thing.
yes, with
Um, but
beef.
but the reality but the reality is that you do have to be careful, because I'm
You do.
noticing that it starts with just a sense of happy Sabbath. They'll send you a message, or if they pass you in the street, to people slowly walking to the other side of the road if they see you coming, to
Oh
people
gosh.
just mocking,
But
oh,
wasn't there
he's
a
just
story
bitter,
about like
he's got an axe to grind, to then I've
Mhm,
noticed, and it's taken 10 years, to gossip. And there's just this, and then, and
mhm,
did you hear this? And you hear that.
mhm,
And I think,
mhm,
wow,
mhm,
can people just accept people that even though they aren't Adventists, and people say, oh, well, you're still attacking the church, therefore you deserve it. No, I'm not attacking, I'm challenging. Because when you challenge
mhm,
ideas, what I've got
mhm.
it written down here. Carl Sagan wrote a great quote. I'll just quickly bring it up, um, because he says extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Mm,
So Adventists who
mhm,
feel attacked at the slightest little, suggestion that something might need to be looked at, or that doesn't seem quite biblical, can we look at that? They get so triggered that they start the ad hominem attack on you. They play
right.
they attack the player, not the ball. But the reality is that you must be able to support these massive claims. You said earlier, if Ellen White, if she is truly even just a messenger, the things that she was relating from God through her mouth to her audience is that's life changing. That's powerful stuff. If that is true, you have to take it very seriously. And if it's not,
Mhm,
it is
mhm,
worthy of
mhm,
being scrutinized. And so it
mhm,
really annoys me when people say you're attacking the church. No, I'm challenging it.
mhm,
And your
mhm,
response to my challenging it by thinking I'm attacking says a lot about you. And then if you're going to
mhm.
stoop to gossip and attacking with bad faith actions and words, that says way more about that person and the denomination than my challenging and your challenging questions. Um, so
And I'm gonna say
you
something
were
in
right
there.
to feel I've got to be careful how I exit this,
Oh
because
yeah.
Adventists can
Yeah.
turn mean in the most smiley kind
Yeah.
of way.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, and how many people work for the denomination and you're like, okay, yeah, they're out, like they quiet quit, but like that's where their income is, and it's rough. Um, oh, I
You
was
said
gonna
you were gonna
say
say something.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say something that I think and actually almost hope is going to upset the former Adventist group a little bit. And 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 I'm probably gonna overstate this, but whatever really crappy way any Adventist has acted, however triggered and agitated they have gotten, it's not their fault. It's not their fault. Some of them, it probably is. I think there's some of them, they full well know, they very well know. But, and see, this is where neurobiology comes in. When we are in a fear environment, it triggers a threat response in our whole body. Our whole nervous system goes into a threat response. And Adventism, I love it. Talk about CPTSD, chronic PTSD. Throw an A on the end. You've got CPTSDA. That's what we're here with, CPTSDA. And so
Mm.
you've been going through it's death by a thousand cuts, where
Mhm.
you have been taught a shame message that you're full of shame, a fear message, and perfection, and all of these things. It gets stored as threats in your amygdala, which is the control
Yes.
center of your sympathetic nervous system response. And that activates the limbic brain, which is your survival brain, And then Adventism is not just a set of beliefs, it's your whole identity. So
Yes.
your identity gets lodged in the survival part of your brain.
Mm.
So when someone questions Adventism, see, we think we're having a prefrontal cortex conversation where we're
Mm.
being rational, curious, open, honest, but they are not functioning
No,
from their prefrontal cortex through no fault of their own.
that's true.
They're in a system that has wired them to only be able to respond. It's like an animal being attacked, and they go into attack mode because of their neurobiology,
Yeah.
because of the system. It's not their fault. And
Great.
I cannot say this loud enough to the former Adventist community. They do not need your judgment. They do not need your attack. They need your love.
Mm.
They couldn't give love the way we needed it. And we stand here and yell and point at them for not being loving, for being hypocrites.
Mm.
You're a hypocrite too. Show them what love is.
Mm. That's fantastic. Thank you for that, Kristi. And the
Thank you.
sad
And I love each of
reality.
you former Adventists too. I'm glad I can
No,
yell at you like
well,
that
the
because
sad
I love all of
the
you.
sad truth is that former Adventists have been traumatized to the point where their limbic systems are kicking in more than their
Yes.
frontal. So
Yes.
we are
Yes.
naturally
And
going.
maybe they don't have
"What?"
the capacity
I
either.
I felt like I had 5 years of giving love, and then after 6 years and 7 and 8 of constant, like one pastor from the pulpit said he wanted to throw Peter Dixon from the nearest cliff to join in with the prophets and
Oh,
throw him off
God.
the, and my wife was
Good
watching, and
for you, Peter.
she'd never heard of Adventists before she met me, and that scared her. She said, "What are they saying?" And in
I
my
don't
mind, it wasn't
know.
even a big deal. Oh, he's just, it's funny. He wants to throw me off a cliff. Ha ha ha! I've arrived. Or he called me a Jesuit. Ha ha ha! We are so affected by the trauma that we don't even know what we're doing in response either. And then,
Yep.
and
Yep.
it's a difficult thing because part of your recovery is allowing yourself to be angry and allowing yourself to go, you guys are really annoying me, and here's why.
Yes.
But
Yes.
if you can and something that I've tried to do is keep the teachings of Jesus front and center. Not all the miracles, not all the stuff,
Amen.
just the teachings. If I can keep focus on that, I can come back to that all the time. So when I go off and be angry, or when I go off and feel loving, or when I go off and feel all the different feelings, I can go, what was Jesus saying when he talked about feeding of the 5,000? What was the real message there? What does he mean by what's that whole Good Samaritan story? What does he
Oh my
mean by,
gosh.
give the shirt off your back? And I think
Mm.
if you can constantly come back, as you said there, and Nancy Cloburn's watching on Facebook, and she said, "Oh, I agree. Show what love is."
Mhm.
But you getting to that point, it's okay, I think, to go through the emotions but you have to have an
Yes.
anchor. You have to have
Yes.
an anchor. And the sad thing is when people leave the Adventist church, there's no one offering any anchor or advice. They're just
No.
gone, out they go,
No. No.
and there's
And
no
I see
support.
the majority, I don't know if it's actually the majority. It feels like the majority of people leaving the Adventist church, at least for a while, they swap one set of beliefs, one set of rigid beliefs for another set of slightly less rigid beliefs. But the cult like behavior, the anger, the trigger is all still there. It's just swapped out with a slightly different
Yeah,
packaging.
yeah.
And sometimes that is usually step one, and then I have no fault with that, but it's like, and again, and I'm saying this because I think this is an opportunity to talk to one of the largest former Adventist audiences I ever will.
Mm,
What does First Corinthians 13 say? Because that was hammered into us too. And the final note there says, the greatest of these is love.
mm,
If I don't have love, I'm a resounding brass and a clanging cymbal. That's what it all comes down to is love. It's not, and we can say this as farmers. It's not about having the correct theology. It's
Mm,
not. It's about love. And love is about freedom. It's freedom to be Adventists. They can't take us in. But can we open our hand, open our heart enough that we can take them in and accept them as they are and not even have to change them? Because I realize it's kind of like we're all sort of in a car in our life. And sometimes you've got the car in park, and sometimes the car is on a journey. And some people are on a journey and they're ready to ask some questions and shift some things. And other people, they're just not at that point. Like, let it be. It's just a process. It's okay. And I know you can say, like, but they're suffering. And it's like, but if they're not on a journey, you can't save them from that moment. But what you can do is show up. And I think about that word witness. And that got told to us as evangelize and convert and indoctrinate.
mhm,
But when the word witness means to behold, to
mm.
see, what does it feel like to bear witness? I feel you bearing witness to me and my story. How could I bear witness to an Adventist, not to have to convert them, but to see them, to hold the pieces? Because, like you're saying, in their experience, when did they have a pastor show up and be pastoral? How could we be pastoral in the way of bearing witness?
Yes, I know. And in many ways, it's a journey through trauma, through integration. It's a human condition where we're all trying to return to the arms of God in a
Yes.
way that means
Yes.
we can actually function better in community.
Yes.
And like we were talking about a tribe earlier, and they often have healers in the tribe. Um, Essentially, we just want community to be functioning better, and
Hmm.
it's a human condition to allow trauma
Hmm.
to to fan the flames of us ripping each other to bits. It's a real discipline
Hmm.
and challenge to actually be part of a loving community.
Hmm.
Because I'm
Yeah.
every time I do a show, I'm sitting there thinking, oh, is this person saying that rubbish? And I'll call stuff out, and some, but hopefully the thread of one's intentions and being and shines through, that in our humanness, we want to heal our own trauma, and we want to be around other people who are caring for each other.
Mm. You have a real warmth, Peter.
Oh, thank you.
So maybe we're gonna get
I,
personal for a minute, but like you are a beautiful soul, and it
Thank
comes
you.
through.
Oh,
There's a
that's
warmth
good,
that
because
comes
I'll
through.
sometimes do a show and I'll think I've really, um, kind of deconstructed someone, and people go, "Oh, you were so gentle and kind to that person." So I've
You
been
said
blessed with a
something
warm
important
face.
though. Yeah, it's just the heater, that's all. You said something important, which is feeling our feelings. And anger and grief are the two huge ones. Those are so important to feel. And I think, it can kind of sound like I'm shutting down anger. Well, I say anger is meant to be channeled. Anger is the power of wielding a weapon. So, do we wield weapons with integrity? Heroes wield weapons with integrity. There
Yes.
are weapons to be wielded. There are times to be very angry, and there's also times to
Yeah.
go off by yourself and scream with the wolves
Yes, I love that.
and shed some tears. I started doing yoga. I started doing yin, like gentle yoga last spring. Every single one, I would cry. And a few in, I went and talked to the instructor. I was like, I hope I'm not being disruptive, but because trauma is stored in our body, especially our hips store a lot of trauma. And
Yes.
when you do work releasing your hips, it
Wow.
can bring tears out. And
That's
so for months,
fascinating.
every Sunday night, I would go and cry at yoga. And I didn't even have to know what I was crying about. And oh, I my Apple Watch tracks my heart rate variability, which is the closest thing we have to measuring the health of our nervous system.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
since I left Adventism, my heart rate variability has gone from about 33, really bad, to about 50, which is quite good. And
Yeah.
moving the emotions are chemicals in our
Mm,
body
mm,
meant to be metabolized.
mm.
And so crying metabolizes the chemicals of grief. When we go running, we can metabolize some of the adrenaline, the cortisol. So how can you move like that? Running can move anger through your body.
Wow. Yeah.
Punching someone can too. Oh, I didn't say that.
Well,
Punch.
clearing the temple with your sandals and a whip, that that uh,
Yeah.
that
Oh, that
that can
guy,
be
Jesus.
therapeutic
That guy
too.
did that, didn't
I'm
he?
so
And there's a time and a
yeah.
place.
I love and Andy Mack, who's been on the show a few times and is a valued member of the community, wrote about not wanting to regulate how she comes across because she's reclaiming her own identity and her
Mm,
personality and who she is again.
mhm.
I'm so glad that in the Bible stories of Jesus, we see him get angry. We see him
Yes.
in his last moments saying, "Why have you forsaken me?" He suddenly has a
Yeah.
doubt. So
Yeah.
I'm allowed to have strong doubts. I'm allowed to have the anger, but if I can have an anchor that and for
Mm,
me it's the teachings of Jesus from the four gospels. That's the only thing I can hang on to
mm,
sometimes. Not the supernatural, not delving into Paul and Revelation and all the other stuff, but
mm,
the
mhm,
four gospels, a little bit
mhm,
of Jude, a little bit of James, um,
mhm,
the stories of Jesus, the parables, what do they mean
mhm,
at a very almost secular level. That's for me my
mm,
anchor, and I
mhm.
think
Oh, I love how you said that.
anyone that's trying to find their identity again, because leaving
Mhm,
Adventism, you do lose that. It's
mhm,
interesting. I was listening to a podcast that was talking about people who leave a cult. It takes 25 years to actually fully, get de-indoctrinated, if that's the right word. Now, I think that social
mm,
media helps speed up that process. But when I listened to that, I did some maths and I thought, well, I was 29 when I really felt like, whoa, hang on. I actually don't believe this stuff anymore, but I'm very culturally a part of it. And I love the people and love Happy Sabbath and Haystacks. So I left when I was 54, and that's 25 years. And I thought, wow. So for
interesting.
me, it was a slow
Interesting.
journey, but I didn't have the internet. I didn't have the speed up kind of
Yeah.
opportunities.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
during most of my time as an Adventist, they were very, very good at quelling any arguments and removing people that were
Mm,
a little bit too, you know, what's the word for it? It'll come to me, but a little bit too more, rebellious.
yeah. Questioning and
So
all that.
yeah. So
It's just easier to keep the narrative clean because we connect on the internet because you can
yeah,
even post stuff anonymously and look
yeah,
things up privately, but when you're in the system, how do you know who else you can go to? How do
that's
you get
right. Yeah.
resources?
And look, I think, and one thing, I don't know if you're open to it. I'm keen for people to connect with you. Yeah, because
Hmm.
I'm sure, like I've read 2 or 3 comments where people say, have said, Kristi, we want to be your bestie. How do we get in touch with you? Um, so I'm tell us a little
There's a
bit of
wait list for besties.
yeah, yeah. So you're obviously, hitting a nerve in a good way. Your people are aligning with and resonating with what you've said. Um, you're actually set up as a religious trauma coach. Can you
Hmm.
tell us a little bit about that work? How much of
Hmm.
it does involve talking to Adventists, and
Hmm.
how can people get in touch with you? And then we'll wrap up with a few closing thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. The majority of my clients are not Adventists. Everyone came from some kind of high control background, but I do have a disproportionate number of Adventists. And it's we always end up a little bit off script, haystacks are going to come in somewhere. It's like you. Oh man, you know how it is. It feels like such a small Adventist world, but even when you don't know each other, it kind of feels like you do. So sorry,
Yes.
all my other clients. My Adventist ones are the favorite. But so here's what I found, because I bounced around to like 11 different coaches and therapists, and I remember bringing it up to one guy, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on with my faith. Like I say, I was doing CPR, like I tried to believe, I was reading steps to Christ, and I'm like, I just gotta believe this, and I just couldn't, no one could help me. I had no idea what was going on, and I said this to my therapist, and he's like, "Well, do you want to like study world religions together?" I'm like, "No," and so, but talk therapy doesn't cut it. And again, this has to do with neurobiology, and it's cool because this was my whole specialty in nursing. Like that all came into this, but there we have a speaking region in our brain, and so when we talk, we're largely connecting with that part of the brain. But
Mm,
religious trauma goes so much into our subconscious mind with the fear, or like most people who grow up in high controlled religion, their family functions as a mini cult. And so
wow.
they have adapted their entire personality. Look up attachment theory. This has to do with attachment theory. And whatever attachment trauma you took on, you energetically were shifting to survive your parents, to get the emotional connection, whether you were hyper connected to them or whether you withdrew a bit or went back and forth. And then the religious aspect always exacerbates whatever attachment trauma you had with your parents. If you
Right.
had an anxious view of who your parents were, you took on those types of perspectives of God because they ran the same river of your neural wiring. And so many people will say, like, the line I hear probably more than anything else is there's pieces of this trauma that will be with me the rest of my life. And I say, if you don't go to the deeper level, you are correct. But if you know how to access the places where the trauma lives, you're absolutely incorrect. It lives in the subconscious mind and it lives in your body. So we call that, if you go to my website, you're going to see subconscious, somatics, and story work. So, story work, we're going to talk about your story. That matters. It actually repairs the corpus callosum of the two hemispheres of your brain so it can start communicating together. And then the story guides us into places where your story lives in your body. You know, is that hollow feeling in the pit of your stomach, the tightness in your chest, that back pain that you carried your whole life. That's your story speaking. And so
Yes.
many autoimmune diseases come out of this. That feeling in the pit of your stomach, it will manifest into illness. But
Hmm.
you can go into your body and release it through gentle body based work. You're resetting the vagus nerve, you're healing your HRV. You do breath work. The breath is the remote control of the mind
Hmm.
to be able to consciously shift from limbic functioning into that prefrontal cortex where you can have that open, connected mind that's not triggered into a trauma response.
Hmm.
And we work with the subconscious to find those limiting beliefs like, everyone will always abandon me. I can only watch life from the sidelines. I'll never be enough. And we can consciously reprogram that. You can choose what belief you want to switch it out for, because our subconscious beliefs are like the software of a computer, that everything that's being put out is coming from those beliefs. And you don't even consciously know you took them on. But
Yeah.
when you reprogram them, you write an entirely different script for the rest of your life. It is powerful.
Yeah.
So the three things I do are story work, subconscious, and somatics, because in all of the trauma research and my own experience, all of the literature, because this is evidence based, those are the three things combined that get all the way down like a dandelion root. They go all the way down to the core and massively speed up your it's your freedom, your agency, who
Yeah.
you really are.
That's so true. That I love that word agency because that has a sense of responsibility where in all of it you have been a victim, but you have to also be the person that breaks the cycle of victimization and
You
enter
become
into
the
a
hero
space
in your
where
own
you're here.
story.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yep.
And
So I do one-on-one sessions on Zoom, and the first hour is free just to see if we're a good fit.
yeah,
And I'm sure that Peter will link my website in the
yeah.
show notes.
Give it to me right now, and I will bring it up. What's it called again?
Risewithincoaching.com.
You did send it to me, but I'm on a different part of the computer. Rise Within. Sorry, say that again. Rise Within.
Risewithincoaching.com.
And I'm just going to bring it up onto the screen. Oh, there it is. It's fantastic. So this is how people can get in touch with you. And just tell me if is that the right? Yes, it is.
Yes.
Your picture there.
That is me.
And it's a really good, I had a look at it when you sent me the link the other day. And it is a really great website, nice and clear and easy to follow. You've done well there. And if I just literally then typed in Rise Within Coaching as if it was one word, and that was the first thing that came up in the search. So I'm going to leave that up just for a moment because I want everybody to go and check out that website. And while they're doing that, I noticed Frank Merendino is watching. Frank is one of our popular presenters on our weekly Good News Fellowship program, where we're really focusing on the good news that can be found in the Bible. And I've learned so much from what he has said. And I just wanted to add that when I was talking about the anchoring Jesus, 4 Gospels, bit of James, bit of Jude, Frank has helped me to, and several other of the amazing presenters. We've just hit 62 shows. So it's been going for over a year now. And it helped me to integrate and find a personal agency with the rest of the Bible, the Old Covenant, the New, what's Revelation, what's the context of Paul. And I'm really enjoying that process. So thanks for being a part of that, Frank. I'm just acknowledging him there and giving people just a quick time to go and type in Rise Within Coaching, because I do really want to have people, and I'll also put it in the comments too, but I really want people to find you, to keep in touch with you, to book you. What a great offer where you're saying that people can have that first hour for free. Check if you're a good mix. I've just put it in the chat there as well. And Jane has just asked, do you do international? I'm sure you do with Zoom. You can do it anywhere. Yeah. And so there we go. So I've just added that into the chat as well. And I'm just going to quickly add it into the Facebook chat so that it's everywhere.
Don't tell too many people. My schedule's getting pretty full.
Well, that's good. So that's how you can get in touch with Kristi, everybody. Well, what kind of thoughts have you got that you'd like to just wrap up? And there's been many requests to have you back. So look, please, in a month or two, let's get you back, and let's maybe talk about some specific things. Like we could have a program where we look at the investigative judgment, how you teased yourself apart from it, not just emotionally and from the fear. What actually theologically did you look at that went, oh, that's not adding up when I look at the Bible? I'd love some of your thoughts on that. So, so just give us some closing thoughts.
Yeah, when people go to my website, there's a page for speaking in media, and I have 2 upcoming weekend live events. And the dates are TBD, but I think they'll be late spring or early summer. One is in the UP of Michigan, and one is in Orlando, Florida. So we are going to be doing attachment theory and healthy relating and learning somatic body-based work for improving your relationships. If anyone's interested in coming to those, there'll be more information coming out on my website. And in closing, now I just want to say something like kind of cheeky and sarcastic. I think it's supposed to be like you bow your heads.
That's how we started.
I don't know. I don't even. Yeah, just go out with a bang. This has been great. This has been great. And I think if there's anything I really hope people take away is love yourself. It's a journey. Wherever you are, whatever you're feeling, religion made us think of ourselves upside down and backwards. There's just so much like repression and shame and everything. Just like let yourself be a human. Let yourself be an animal, for a little bit. And the healing comes with time. And really lean into asking yourself, what is love? What does it feel like? Think about sometime you've really felt love in your life. See where you feel it in your body. Is it this warmth in your chest that expands out? And I want you to start noticing when you're with people, you're in different circumstances, maybe even different rooms of your house. You feel that coming up. How can you lean into that? How can you lean into love?
Yeah. Boy, that's great. Well, I want to just thank you so much for sharing today and being part of the program. I've learned some new things. I've enjoyed our conversation. I think you've made a whole lot of new friends here, and
I love it.
and people are looking forward to having you back. And so just one last quick plug, everybody. Tomorrow at this time, we have Dr. Clinton Baldwin on, and he will be talking about his new book that is basically deconstructing the investigative judgment. Next week, we have Ryan Day, who was one of the leaders over at 3ABN. And then the following day, we have Jim Wagner, who was Walter Ray of the White Lie fame, was his lawyer, and he's been on the show a couple of times and is a fantastic guy, and it will be a very informative show. So there's 3 shows I don't want you to miss coming up. Danny, if you're watching and you could quickly tell me who's on for Good News Fellowship this week, let me know. But yes, once again, and if anyone wants to kind of support what I'm doing, just go to PayPal there, paypal.me/Peter Dixon Music, because prior to lockdown, that's what I was, a full-time muso. So I haven't changed the PayPal. So it really helps. It was interesting, Kristi, because I'm relying a lot on the income now from doing SDAQ&A with the 3 shows a week, etc., and the time I'm putting in. When I had the Christmas break for a good 3 or 4 weeks, all of a sudden I noticed there was no income coming in.
Oh,
so it just reminded me.
When you quit working,
yes, it's not like I'm working for an employee that gives me holiday pay.
Right.
So it just reminded me of how much I value people and the support that you guys have given me. So thank you very much.
Rise Within Coaching might have a donation link too.
But yeah, I think I'm happy to direct people to that link. It's been a lot of fun. Isn't it good that you can talk about trauma, but also have a good laugh? I love that balance.
Yes. Yeah. You know what? I signed up for improv school. I'm going to improv school starting this Sunday. Because to me, like, this is the gold. Like, the fundamentalism is like, it's just rich material for comedy. So this is the end point. Start out crying and angry, and you will know you've arrived when it's all a big joke.
Oh, I love it. I love that. Oh, and Danny's just written James Hindley or Hidley. I'm forgetting how to spell that. He's on, and he's very, very good. He's on this weekend, Thursday, 5:30 p.m. Australia time, midday. Well, we will leave it there. Thank you very much, Kristi. And until next time, take it easy, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks.